have a story that tells us how we came to be here together at this moment in this room. Right? Now, stories are so powerful and so perfect because there's no doubt Quincy will tell you the magic is in their simplicity. Every story has a beginning, every story has a middle, and every story has an end. And that's all you really need to know to begin to create a story. So let's stop for a second and reflect. Just reflect for a minute. What would be the moment in your life, the beginning of the story that brings you here today, right now? Let's take a moment. Now for me, one would think that logically my story begins 1988 on the 7 Mile Beach, a young tourist girl from Canada, taking some time off from my PhD. That was it. I just started my PhD, so I was taking a little holiday. Girlfriend brought me down to Cayman. I'm sitting on 7 Mile Beach. The soca music's coming down. This is the old Holiday Inn. How many of you remember the old Holiday Inn? Yeah, we remember that. And who should walk down the beach but a very handsome young man and ask me where I'm from. I could tell you a very good story, but you know what? It's not the right story for this particular occasion because it doesn't end us up here. And it was 23 years ago, okay? But obviously, in that story, that beginning, there was a connection. Frank and I were moved by a common passion for injustice and inequities and the power of performance, the power of music and theater. At that time, I said I was writing a PhD. Frank was writing One Black, One White in his head. That was interesting. I saw him go from his head to paper. Oh. Anyway, not the right beginning. And the beginning of your story is really, really important. When I work with people, they often say, Erica, I don't know where to begin. Just get me started. And I say, no, I can't start your story. It's got to be yours. You've got to find the beginning. So let's start again. When you're looking for the beginning of a story, and you can't find it, because there could be so many, what you want to focus on is your purpose. Okay, so what's my purpose here today? That'll be my next question. What is your purpose here today? What moves you to be here in this room discussing about the things we're discussing? For me, I know my purpose clearly. I'm almost 60. It takes a long time to find your purpose. But my purpose here today is clearly a concern for injustice, a concern for voicelessness, a concern, and in any context, well, Frank can bring the particularities of Cayman Island. Story works anywhere, anywhere. Everyone has it. Okay, so for me, I know my purpose is injustice, and my purpose is a passion for performance. And I know where my story begins. It begins many years before I came to Cayman Island. Many, many years before I met Frank. It begins when I was young. And indeed, I was profiled. I was a youth at risk. I was pregnant when I was 15 years old. Kicked out of school, kicked out of my home. Okay? Now, you can see where the purpose for justice comes from that kind of experience, right? So, we need the middle of my story. We begin it when I'm young with an experience of injustice, which can fuel passion. What happens in the middle of stories is that's where you confront your challenges and your obstacles. And all of you to be here right now went through a challenge and an obstacle, okay? See, this is the other wonderful thing about stories that I didn't quite say. You're all listening to me so nicely. A story creates that identification, you know, a listener and teller. And no story means anything without a listener. You must listen. Okay, so we take me back to the beginning experience of injustice. A single, pregnant teenager with no husband. Now, we all can shake our heads. What are those obstacles? We know, we're educated now, right? I had economic obstacles, social obstacles, discrimination. We all know the story of the single mother teenager, right? Doesn't matter where you work. If you're interested in youth, you know that story. It's not a good thing. Wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. There's nothing wrong with being a single teenage mother. What is wrong is the obstacles that society puts in front of you to ensure that you will be punished. These are punitive measures. These are not transformative solutions. Make it damn hard for me to get an education. You know, make me raise my children with minimum wage jobs, pulling a beer thing, because you got to work at night when you're a single mother. You got to be home during the day. Okay? So clearly I can see my challenges and obstacles. Are you guys curious as to how I overcame them?
Yeah.
I don't have time to tell you. But buy me a drink. Okay. Now what about, but let's get back. So that's the middle of the story. Okay. So now what about the end? Have you guys found your beginning? I hope you are thinking about your own story. Think of your purpose, the middle, the obstacles, the challenges, And actually, in that purpose of when you negotiate your way around the challenges, that's where you find your values. Your values are seated by the obstacles and challenges that you have overcome in your story. Okay? Now, the end of the story. And I have 5 more minutes. And the beautiful thing about being a storyteller is there's no script. So I can make it in 5 minutes, no problem. The end of the story. The end of the story we're all here right now with our purpose. And what are we doing in this room? We're gathered in this university. Many of us took planes to get here. To hell with the carbon count. Right? Why? Because we value listening to each other. We come here to talk to each other, to discuss our ideas, the things we think about, the things we conceptualize. Because we value listening, right? You wouldn't be here if you didn't value listening. So what I'm giving you is an example of how story can work as a research tool. Are you getting it? Can you see what I can do in a workshop?
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, it's interesting because we're always talking about as academics, and I am an academic. You know, I am. I'm a professor at the University of British Columbia. I'm on the faculty of the University of Virginia. I've taught in 10 or 12 different countries. I have the credentials. But I stopped lecturing a long time ago because story works better when you're trying to teach. So what we want to do now, that you all agree you're here to listen, is we want to ask you to extend that willingness and openness to listen beyond the walls of this conference. And in order to do that, Frank and I have organized a session tonight at 9 p.m. in McField Lane. And we would like to see all of you there. Just come and see and listen. Don't be worried. We'd like to see all of you there. Frank, we got some cards?
Yeah.
Okay. And we've also put together an extensive website because in the process of 30 minutes you really can't. And because often, sometimes, mind you guys are all looking good, you're all looking like you're right with me. Sometimes I do this and people but because I've confronted that attitude in the past, which I'm not today, I always build a very extensive website when I present. So on our website we have a full bibliography. What do we have? We have our papers there, our bibliography. In our bibliography we have academic articles. We have websites of interest. And then we have media. And the media provides you with some examples of how this type of methodology has been used in the past in other places. It's transferable. The beautiful thing about it is that I'm a foreigner. You know, as Frank says, we're bringing foreigners, and I can't help but say, well, hi, I'm one of them foreigners. But what I bring with me is how do you explain it? I mean, it doesn't matter. If I go to Brazil, I can go to Guatemala. I work around the world because there's the common essence of story is we all have one. And you can use story to critically reflect. And everybody, whether they have a grade 5 education, whether they got knocked up at 15, everybody has the ability, see Joshua, to reflect critically. Okay, and that's what story does. Thank you.
I'll drop the formalities as well and say thank you very much to Frank and Erica. For a stunning approach to what is disempowering people. It's such an interesting topic. Just quickly, there are 2 people and they were down for a presentation each, so that's why they've each had more time. If you're wondering, thinking I'm getting total time out of control, it's okay. We've got time though for a couple of questions, so questions anybody? You've overwhelmed us all.
I have a question. I'm trying to grasp, as I was listening, how do you actually use the story? Is it people telling you their story?
Yeah. Yes. Now, okay, that's an excellent question. Every story requires a teller and a listener. There is no story if there is no listener. Okay?
So you become the listener then?
And yes.
And the other person,
but I also tell my story.
Person, you tell your story first?
Oh yes, you can answer somebody's stories if you're not willing to tell your own.
It's kind of like show and tell. I like it.
Yeah,
I maybe will buy you a drink.
But also to address that question too, we can take story